chances are, if you live in a winter climate like I do, and your training these days is out in the snow, and you've got some training camps coming up this spring, or maybe just your first race and you're headed to somewhere a whole lot warmer. And one of the great things we can do is do some heat adaptation, so when we get down there to those warmer climates, we're not completely cooked. So first off, when we do some heat acclimation, what's happening in our body are a few key physiological changes. One of the most important is that our blood plasma volume increases. What blood plasma is it's like the liquidy part of your blood, not the red blood cells, but the rest of it. So when you're in heat, if you've got more blood plasma, it's kind of like your internal system that's going to prevent you from turning into a raisin from the inside out. When all your tissues are hydrated from that blood plasma, it's really easy to have things like oxygen and nutrients to fire your muscles and to help them recover circulating. If you don't have great blood plasma volume in the heat, everything kind of starts turning into sludge and all those systems are compromised and it's harder for your body to dump heat. So what we're doing in a heat adaptation is we're working to increase that blood plasma volume. There's a few different ways to do it, but really the key is that you just regularly expose yourself to some pretty warm temperatures for long enough that it's going to raise your resting heart rate and you're going to get a little bit sweaty and then you're done. So how can you do this? There's a whole bunch of different ways. If you have access to a sauna, that's the way that most people do it. They'll finish their training ride and then they'll go hop in the sauna for just long enough, again, for their heart rate to start raising. Obviously you're sweaty, so it's hard to tell if your sweat rate's increased. But you don't need to stay in there for like 20, 30 minutes. Literally just kind of watch your heart rate. You probably have a heart rate monitor on some way, and you'll notice that your heart rate is staying the same and all of a sudden it starts to raise. And that might happen in as little as 8, 10 minutes, pretty quick. You've done enough of a dose. Some other ways you can do it is you can get in a hot bath. Hot tubs are a little bit better, but even a really warm bath, obviously don't scald yourself, but hot tubs are usually sitting somewhere around like 105 degrees. That's kind of the perfect range to do that. And again, you're gonna just submerge yourself. If you have a heart rate monitor on, or you can just kind of tell your heart rate will start to elevate. When that happens, you've got enough of a dose. Or you could just, at the end of your training ride, you could put on a whole bunch of layers and do some easy riding, endurance or lower, and just sweat and get really warm. And again, watch your heart rate, it'll start coming up, you've got enough of a dose. So all sorts of different ways you can do this. The thing to remember is, even though it doesn't seem like you're doing a whole lot, you're asking your body to do a lot to make these heat adaptations. So don't do this on a day where you've got a hard workout or when you're already fatigued. Do it on days where you have an easy spin, it's a recovery ride, maybe the end of an endurance day. Those are the days you want to pick. And you're going to know that expect to be more tired than you would normally be on just a regular training day from doing the heat adaptation. Now, what's the dose? So there's two kind of recommended ways to go about this. One is you can just binge on heat adaptation training for like 6 to 8 days before your event. I don't love this approach because you really have to drop the volume of your training on top of what you've already dropped to taper for that event. And you potentially could be a whole lot more fatigued. Now, if you've done some heat adaptation training in the past and you know how your body responds, maybe this works really well for you. But for the first time or a really critical event, I just wouldn't recommend this. The other way that works really well is you can spread this out over about a 3-week period, but you're going to have more sessions. You're going to want to try to fit in somewhere like 10 to 12 sessions over that 3-week period. But this will let you pick days that are like your recovery spins, would be excellent days to do some heat adaptation training at the end of your workout. So give it a try, plump up that blood plasma volume, and then head down to those spring events in Arizona and whatever tropical locations you're headed to, and know that you've got a little leg up on surviving the heat.